The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio. From hot dogs to cool kitties, this is Darkside of the Pooch.
Welcome back to another fantastic show here called Darkside of the Pooch. You can hear it sounds very, very busy. Where Dr. Rab is there at the Rossbridge Animal Hospital, 208-0301, right there at the Rossbridge Animal Hospital in the Rossbridge area. He is the man. He does fantastic work. And of course, we do a show about the industry, which is like a $14 billion industry. It's blowing up. It's crazy. How you doing, brother? What's going on?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing really good. We had a busy week last week, and so glad to start another one.
Well, I want to give you an update because a lot of people, and I just showed you a Frisco dog, which is great news because that means Frisco's still alive, and people are like freaking out. I'm getting a lot of emails going, "Is your dog okay? Give us an update on the next podcast." Blah 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 blah. So we'll do that. But it appears now it was either intestinal cancer. And what was the other thing you said it was? The stuff I've been saying intestinal fibromyalgic intestinal something or other, but it's not that, is it? What's it called? What is it?
It's kind of a hybrid disease called protein losing enteropathy or lymphangiectasia, which sounds like a Disney movie.
Yeah. That sounds pretty good.
Sounds like an old Walt Disney.
So when you say a hybrid, what do you mean? Like obviously, this is something.
Well, it's technically the same disease, but I guess the cause could be a little bit different. But the end result is basically that the intestines. It's basically an autoimmune disorder where the intestines have a hard time not being a leaky sieve. Okay, so they lose. There's a lot of protein that's being lost through the intestines because the intestines are not absorbing it well. Mm-hmm. That leads to an oncotic pressure in the body, and that allows fluid to build up in the abdomen. It leaks out of vessels. So you end up getting a belly full of fluid. You can't absorb nutrients. You have diarrhea a lot. And you get very, very sick, and you can die from it.
Yeah, that sounds like exactly what my dog has.
The only way you can diagnose definitively that disease and differentiate it from intestinal cancer is with a biopsy. But the issue that we ran in with Frisco Boy is that he was, and potentially could be, we'll find out in about a week or so, too sick to undergo the surgery for the biopsies.
Yeah.
So that was out. We can't differentiate it with a biopsy because he was too sick to undergo surgery. And then the other option is a biopsy via endoscopy where they're anesthetized and they put a camera down their esophagus through their stomach into their small intestines. And then you can use a little pincher to grab some of the lining of the intestine. That's a very costly procedure. Mm-hmm. And also, since it's not a full thickness biopsy, meaning you don't get the entire intestine from the outermost layer to the innermost layer, sometimes you can get a false negative result. Mm-hmm. Although with this disease that we're talking about with Frisco, that's less likely for the protein losing enteropathy. But for intestinal lymphoma, it's best to get a full thickness biopsy. So it wasn't really in the cards for him to have that biopsy done safely.
Yeah.
So we elected to try some medication on him that would help both diseases most likely, but specifically would give us some long-term improvement if it was the non-cancer disease that we're talking about. And so that's what we did. We put him on some medication, and what was the result of that to this point?
So far, man, it's been great. I mean, he's barking a little bit. He doesn't have diarrhea anymore. Now it appears he's got somewhat of a constipation thing. But I think that may just because he's not drinking a ton of water. He pees every time he goes out, but it's just a thimbleful. But he's drinking, but he's eating this special food, this EN stuff. Let me, which is really cool because you and I have been doing the show for years, and this is the first time I've ever had a dog in this situation. And I was always one of those, I'm not going to spend $1,000 and my dog gets cancer and blah, 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 blah. And here we are in a situation where I'm like, okay, this is me. And the fact that I get to do the show with you is just been truly a blessing. And so it worked out really well, not only from a professional standpoint, but I'm learning a lot from it as well. And I mean, you can tell me right now, how close was he to death? I mean, he was done, wasn't he?
He was pretty close.
Yeah.
I mean, he, when your protein level in your body gets to a certain level, it can no longer do the functions that it needs to do to live. And I don't know how far he was from that happening, but he was a lot closer than most dogs.
Yeah. And I mean, you have to look at some of the things that dogs do, and that is a wag of their tail. A couple of times he's taken his nose and he's nudged my arm to pet him, which obviously he hadn't done the last 3 weeks, which is a great sign. And I certainly obliged. He's rolling over and being submissive again to get belly rubs, which is something that he hadn't done in 3 weeks. And he's wagged his tail a little bit. So, and he's eating his food. A lot of people saying, and I mean, I guess this holds true, is like, you can tell a lot by what a dog does with its meal. If it's eating it and they're throwing it right up, or if it's not eating. But I know that if an animal doesn't eat, there's something seriously wrong. Something's going on when an animal doesn't eat. So I love seeing, and that goes for human beings too. When we get older and we stop eating, we're about ready to die. So I was to see him eat the food that you and explain people to this is really cool. I didn't realize this because I went to Petco. They couldn't help me. PetSmart did, but you gave me a prescription for dog food. And I had never seen that before. And so I asked the woman at it was called Benfield Hospital at PetSmart. I think they got a place called Benfield. And I said, what is this thing? She goes, yeah. I said, why would you need a prescription for dog food? Explain that. Why would I?
I don't know.
What? She told me, she goes, it's because it can hurt other dogs. She said, and I said, do people come in and get this dog food? Is it like crack or something? Or is it like, are they making drugs out of this dog food? She said, no, but sometimes it can be, if it can be mixed with other things, it could be harmful to other animals. And so we wanted to make sure that when you get it, you're getting the right stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but most of these prescription dog foods they're good for almost any dog. Like they're well-balanced foods. But they do vary in their ingredients and how their ingredients are produced, and protein levels are different, fat levels are different, carbohydrate levels are different. There are different minerals in some of them based on what they do. There's different densities. There's different shapes. There's all kind of things that
I had no clue. So when you go in your big box store and all the dog food's on the right side, go look on the left side. And some of it's caged up. They got it locked up. And I'm like, well, first of all, it is $10 a pound. I'll tell you that right now. I was like, $60 for 6 pounds of dog. So we went the small thing because I wasn't sure if he was going to eat it. And then you were talking about putting cottage cheese on his food. And I was like, okay, he's going to eat this. He's going to like this. So yeah, but I'd never been to that side of the store. I've never been to that side with the cow because I'm always like, what's over there? And do they have horse food over there? Or do they, what's over there? And it's EN, it's EH, it's ST, it's GL, it's LR. It's like all these different letters of food. And I'm like, what? And it's specially packaged and the bags are shiny and they got sprinkles on them and stuff. I'm like, whoa, this is high dollar stuff here.
But a lot of science goes into that food. It really does. And I think that, it might be to protect, when I say consumer, I don't mean the thing that's eating it. I mean the thing that's buying it. It might be to protect them in some ways, because I think that when people see expensive food, there is a demographic that feels that cost makes things better.
Yeah.
So if you go and you see a bag of dog food and it costs $100, you might think, oh, this must be top of the line dog food and I need to go grab it. And yeah, for your dog, it would be fine, but it's also total overkill for most people's dog to be on a 24-pound bag of food that costs $100.
Yeah. It looks like Kix, by the way, Kix cereal.
Yeah.
You know, kick seal,
Try
the little white balls.
Yeah, see if it tastes like that. But the beauty behind that food is that the issue with what we suspect Frisco has, and time will tell, because with this medication we're giving him, if he responds for weeks and months, then we'll know that we're on the right track, and then we'll have a confirmed diagnosis. We're using the medication as a diagnostic tool. So if he ends up having what we think he has, the beauty of this food is that it is very low in fat, because protein losing enteropathies or lymphangiectasia, for dogs that have this, if they get excessive fat, or even not excessive fat, just a normal amount of fat that normal dogs can handle, it turns their intestines into non-absorptive garden hoses.
Wow.
It's the fat that can set them off. Not that you caused this, because you didn't cause it. It's not that you fed your dog a bunch of lard and caused this disease. This is an autoimmune issue that is just exacerbated by fatty foods.
Now, several people have asked me the question, what caused this? Because they want to know because they've got small dogs and they're freaking out. They listen to the show and they're like, wait a minute, what happened? What happened to Frisco Dog? And I said, I don't think anything really happened. And I did throw out the idea. And if I said, if you listen to the show, you realize that smaller animals typically seem to have more issues than larger animals, assuming because of their size. That's what scared me, obviously. And we went through the last week where I text you on Friday and you're like, if he can make it till Monday. And I'm like, if he can make it till Monday. And you're like, yeah, dude, this is serious. I mean, if he's lost all this weight, he's in bad shape. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I didn't have any idea that I was that close, to losing my boy. And then of course, I'm picking him up and he's just skin and bones. But what is the reasoning behind this, and how relevant or prevalent is it in small dogs? Because I never knew that dogs got cancer like that.
Well, so small breed dogs and large breed dogs, I think they each have their own kind of individual problems. And for every disease process that is, here, let me show. I'm just going to grab this book. I just want you to see the thickness of this book real quick. All right. So, and then so for every disease this isn't everything. Okay. Yeah. But these are the most common ailments for dogs and cats right here in this book.
Wow.
So for every disease that's in this book, it's really interesting that you have genetic and breed predispositions for every single disease in this book. So it's really interesting. If you look at these, you'll have diseases where it's all large breed dogs that are there, or it's all small breed dogs that are there. And the disease that Frisco has, it's not exclusive to small breed dogs, but small breed dogs are overrepresented. Just like long bone cancer, is seen more in large and giant breed dogs. So it's not that small dogs are sicker. It's just that they have their own set of diseases.
Gotcha. He is Dr. Ab Stewart, Darkside the Pooch. It's always brought to you by the fine folks down there at Ed's Pet World. I went down there late last week, got me some sucker fish, and got some chinchilla food. My chinchilla's doing fantastic. Ed's Pet World, in business for 50 years down there in beautiful Homewood. If you need an exotic pet, rabbits, chinchillas, spiders, tarantulas, great fish, sucker fish, whatever it is, they're going to knock it out of the park for you. They got caiman crocodiles down there. It's fantastic. Ed's Pet World, and of course, also the brand new store, which has nothing to do with pets, and that has to do with toys, and then it's Sasquatch toys and comics. Comics in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, unboxed stuff. If you find stuff in the attic, they buy, sell, and trade at Sasquatch and Edge. Check them out. They do wonderful work. Saw this really interesting article that I wanted to read to you. It came out through Yahoo News a little bit earlier today. And it's from the New York Times. It says, "Are we loving our pets to death?" And it says, "As our pets have become ever more like us, or at least it seems to be our goal, we pamper them with customized nutrition plans and knapsack carriers, dog hydrotherapy, and stays in boutiques, cat hotels. At All the Best, a high-end pet store chain in Seattle, the most popular items are feline and canine enrichment toys designed to stimulate them and bring happiness to animals that are increasingly lying around alone and are bored. Now, some animal welfare ethicists and veterinarian scientists are wondering if in our efforts to humanize our pets, we've gone too far. The more we treat pets like humans, they argue, the more constrained and dependent upon us our pets' lives become, and the more health and behavioral issues our pets develop. We now view our pets not only as family members, but as equivalent to children. The problem is dogs and cats are not children, and owners have become increasingly protective and restrictive, so animals are not able to express their own doggy and catty natures as freely as they might. It even goes on to say that we train our dogs too much and we put them on leashes too much. Now, if your dog is not on a leash, people are like, whoa, hey, Fido, hey, this is the leash only around here. Chill out. What, we got your dog's outside your yard. You need to be leashed up, or we need to have a pet. And I kind of go back to you and I have had this discussion. Do I think our pets are better off now than they were? Yeah. We have a lot more pets now. COVID was a big part of that. But we did. The dog would scratch the door. We'd let it out, and it would be out for hours. And I never knew where it went. I didn't know what it got into. I didn't know whose yard it was in. Sometimes I'd hear it bark, and it would come back 4 or 5 hours later. It would scratch the door. We'd let it in and go into the living room and fall asleep. And that's what our dogs were. I mean, I don't remember our dogs even having any type of collar or even a description of what the animal or who the animal belonged to. Now, that was just, we lived in a rural area of Westchester, Ohio, okay? We had farms. You probably didn't need to worry about, dogs getting hit by cars and, people, stealing your animals or stealing pups. But what's your thoughts on this article? Because I do think that we are humanizing our pets to the point where are they really enjoying being kitties and doggies?
People in rural Ohio, they don't steal dogs and cats. They steal people.
No, we tip cows. No, we cow tip, dude. That's what we do for fun.
You guys have so many creepy people up there. You see somebody on a bicycle, you abduct them. I was watching the 2020 about this in Ohio just last night. My wife and I were watching this 2020 about this crazy dude lives in Ohio in the cornfields, and he comes out and abducts people.
Yeah, that's what we do. That's right.
Anyway, so there's a fine line. There's a fine line, and we see it in our clients. We do. But listen, there are also parents that are over the top with their children.
Yeah,
that's just a difference in people. That's just a difference in. You have. I think that you have 3 groups of pet owners. I used to think there was just 2, but I think there are 3 big groups. One of the groups is I'm going to give my pet food and water and a rabies vaccine. And then when it dies, it dies. Mm-hmm. That's one group. Then you have all the way on the other end of the spectrum, whereas I'm going to do whatever I need to do, however much it costs, however much debt or not, if I have enough money not go in debt, I'm going to do that as long as my pet's comfortable. And then you have kind of the in between where it's like, I've got a budget. If I feel like that this is going to be helpful, then I'm going to go do this procedure or give this medication or whatever. And, we have the whole gambit of that in our practice. And, I think that there are people that do that maybe love their pet to death. But, I think that there are some that may just be kind of an irrationality that those people have across the board in their life.
Well, and then you got your pet owners, let's just be honest, that don't do anything. They just plain abuse their pet. I mean, they have
those are the people we never see.
Because they're not going to.
Those people don't even exist.
Yeah, well, exactly. But unfortunately, they're probably a large portion of pet ownership out there. And maybe that's because of people like me. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've driven through. Now I haven't driven through my neighborhood and seen this, but on rural roads, you drive out near Childersburg, whatever, you see dogs on chains out in front yards all the time. And I don't. That's how they do their business. That's fine. And I'm assuming the dog's got water, and I'm assuming it's got a place to be shaded in this heat. And I'm assuming they bring it in at night. I don't know. I used to have a neighbor that had 6 beagles, and they were hunting dogs, and they lived outside. And he had a big cage, but they were fed and watered, and they had shelter when they needed it. And but it was just a different type of dog for a different type of reason. I just remember I used to go back there and he used to bark incessantly, these beagles, and they stunk because beagles already stink. But they were stepping their own poop and everything else. And so that was just kind of typical of what, we saw in our neighborhood. So,
was this in the cornfields in Ohio? We're talking about the 2020. Is this what we're talking about?
No, it's funny because I do, I always use the line. It's on the spectrum. There are ends of everything we do, right? I mean, there's people that like politics. I mean, there's people that will go up to the Capitol and insurrectionists. There's people that hate this person, and there's people right in the middle. And normally, you want to listen to the people in the middle because they're the sane ones. They kind of got it going together. But they're I call them outliers. There are outliers in everything we do, and that's the crazy people. And there's plenty of them out there. So
yeah. Listen. I give you crap because everyone knows I'm from North Alabama, and like a year ago, I saw that some dude I graduated with murdered somebody with an axe. So yeah, don't worry. Exactly. I give you grief because that's where I'm from.
No, and I want I want people to take care of their animals, and if you like to put sweaters and stuff on your pets. Now let me ask you this question because I think this is kind of interesting. I was in a situation where we were going to go to the beach, and the kids Santo asked me when I came into your office about a month ago, if Frisco has cancer, what are you going to do? And I said, he doesn't have cancer. He doesn't have cancer. I've never had a dog had cancer. No, dogs only get cancer. He ain't going to get cancer. He goes, well, what if he does have cancer? Are you going to take care of it? And I said, well, sure, I'll do what it takes. Knowing that he didn't have cancer. Well, here I am. And he goes, well, will you take our beach money and take care of him, or are we going to the beach? And I said, well, what do you want to do? And at the time he was like, well, I think we should take care of Frisco. And all three of my kids were like, yeah, we need to take care of the dog. And I said, okay, then we'll take care of the dog because it's probably going to be one or the other. And your prices are just as competitive as anything else. And I know you did me a deal, right? Because you gave me the brother-in-law deal. But what happens when someone gets an animal and they don't have a couple of $1,000s to treat? Because, I mean, this is not something I had budgeted. It's not something that I was planning on spending, for gosh sakes. I mean, I'm just thank the Lord I had it. But if I didn't, how does that work? And does that ever happen to you? Do you ever go? Because, I mean, when you're talking thousands of dollars, again, that's just something that kind of comes out of nowhere. This whole idea that everyone's got $2,000 in their emergency fund for this type of stuff, doesn't exist in my world.
Yeah. Well, I find this really interesting that there is a new push for what's called spectrum of care. And that's basically just, I guess, a term that someone came up with for like giving people options. Which is, I don't understand if there are people out there that this is like a new thing for them. Like, I'm practicing veterinary medicine. I'm going to begin giving spectrum of care. It's like, I mean, how have you been living for your entire career? Because that's what you have to learn how to do in our field. And I would assume that there are almost every person in any line of work has to do this. I'm sure that MDs have to do it, especially if you have a lot of people that don't have health insurance. Yep. I'm sure that you have to give them a spectrum of care. But it's like that with cars. You go buy a car. The reason that they have different trim levels is because there are people that have different demographics that they live in. Different socioeconomic levels. So, look. We can do something for almost everybody. Now, if you had come in and we said, we need to run these tests on Frisco, if you had said no, then I likely would have said, okay, we're going to try this medication. And if we're going to assume that he has this disease and we're going to try this medication for about a week. Mm-hmm. If that doesn't work, then we'll move on to this next medication. Now, what the pet owner has to understand is that there are times where if we guess wrong, we could do more harm than good. Yeah. Like you understood that we needed to rule some things out first because one of the potential treatments for this was going to be high doses of prednisone, immunosuppressive doses of prednisone. And if you have a dog or a cat, or there's tons of other animals I'm not putting in there. If you have an animal that has an infectious disease And infectious disease was on the table with him because he was anemic, and there's tons of different things that cause anemia that are infectious. If we suppress a pet's immune system and they have an infectious disease, they could die.
Yeah.
So as long as the pet owner understands that, look, if you either can't afford or don't want to pay for the test, that's fine. We have this option, but you also have to understand that in doing this, you've got to hold us harmless because this could do some real damage. And then it's just up to them. But that's spectrum of care. And like for people that are just hearing that term for the first time, I just find that shocking.
No, I mean, I find it shocking as well. And I know I can dig and understand exactly what you're saying. But it's much like probably an individual with a parent that has been in a nursing home that they think is probably going to kick it soon, and they don't. My grandpa was like that. He lived like 10 years longer than he was supposed to at $6,000 a month, and just was ripping through his retirement, and to the point where they were like, okay, we've got enough for 3 more months. What are we going to do? I mean, and that's just some of the questions that we have to deal with in life. And that's what happens. Oh, my daughter just came in and brought the chinchilla. Want to see it?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Oh, Gizzy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that thing is so cool.
Yeah,
Look at it. Look at the tail.
Yeah. Gizmo's doing
That's a lot bigger. That's a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, and he's gonna get a little bigger. He's getting up there.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, look at that bushy tail.
Isn't that awesome?
Oh, he's so cute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's
like
great.
He's like a cross between a rabbit and a squirrel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And as long as we get him out, like all animals, you get out what you put in. But we get him out, she's probably just going to put him down in the bedroom floor here and just let him run around. Oh, the dog's out. Nobody can't do that. But yeah, and we got him doing tricks, and he's jumping up on our laps, and he's super cool. Again, I got an Australian Shepherd. Awesome. Yeah, it's super cool. Thank you, love.
Now, I want to go back. I have one more comment about the spectrum of care thing.
Yeah,
because believe it or not, we really care about, if we can fix things. Like I've been literally sitting on pins and needles to see how Frisco was going to do. We base, our self and our self-worth shouldn't come from our jobs, but unfortunately, some of it does, right, wrong, or indifferent. So we like to practice gold standard medicine. We do. We like to run the tests that we need to run. We like to figure out what's going on as definitively as we can. And we like to treat it with the medication that we know we need to treat. So, that's the way that we like to practice. That's the way everyone likes to practice. In a perfect world, which we do not live in, that's the way you practice. But when you can't, you do the best you can.
Yeah. I think what really surprised me going through this process was how difficult it is to diagnose something that's wrong with the dog. Because I just assumed I'd take him in there, and a couple of days later you go, oh yeah, he's got blah, 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 blah. We're going to treat him with this and he's good to go. Now I knew that he was in a dangerous spot because he had lost so much weight. But when you started telling me you could have this, and I was like, wait a minute, you're the best. I mean, and you're like, dude, he can't tell me how he's feeling. He's not a human being. We don't have the data points that we have with humans to go, okay, these are their symptoms and this is what it could possibly be. With animals, it could be a plethora of different things. And it's not like you could tell me his stomach hurts or, having these thoughts and anything else. So kudos to you, man. You're the best. I mean, and I'm so happy that I've got you in my life, and I'm happy that we had this opportunity, and hopefully it turns out good. And I've been praying for him, and hopefully he turns out to have another, 6 or 7 years left in him.
Yeah. And the heart, what separates and there are some days I'm not sure which side of this coin I fall on. Okay. But what separates the good from the bad, or the good from the better, is the ability to come up with a list of possible diagnoses. Like the best in the business can come up with a list of differentials based on the symptoms. Mm-hmm. And then after that, you have to rely on your diagnostics to rule things out.
Yeah.
So it's not so much being able to say what is wrong. It's being able to say what could be wrong.
Yeah.
And then eliminating those.
Good stuff. Tell people how they can find you, my friend.
You can call us at 208-0301. You can email us, rossbridgeanimalhospital@gmail.com, or you can find us on Facebook.
You got any boarding left for this summer?
That depends on the day.
Yeah, it's getting kind of crazy out there. Darkside the Pooch, always brought to you by Ed's Pet World. Your home of exotic pets. They got great fish, tarantulas, bearded things. They got caiman crocodiles. They got chinchillas I just showed you. They've got rats. They feed you snake. They got great snake. They got a million snakes down there. Unbelievable stuff. I got me a couple of suckerfish down there. Check out Ed's Pet World down there in beautiful Homewood. For like 50 years they've been in business. And also Sasquatch Toys and Comics. They've been in business now for since, I guess, last October. And they're doing really, really well, too. They've got all kinds of great comics down there, toys since the 60s, 70s, and 80s, stuff unboxed. If you want to get some brand new stuff, you get Legos down there. They can get Battlestar Galactica, Star Wars and stuff. Check out the fantastic Sasquatch Comics and Toys. Fantastic stuff. Until next week, my friend, thank you so much.
See you, buddy.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.